Okay, so on to today's webinar, which is an introduction to carbon literacy for vets. Jen needs a little introduction to those who are in the veterinary sector. She founded Sustainable-ish, which is not at all veterinary, but prior to that trained as a vet, and so is perfectly positioned to talk to us today about the carbon literacy training that she has developed for the veterinary sector. So with no further ado, I will hand over to Jen.
Introduction to carbon literacy for the veterinary profession. Last time I did this session, massively ran out of time, so I've pruned some slides and we will see how we get on. What will probably happen is I will start talking quicker and quicker as we go through the session. But I'm super aware that this is people's precious lunch break, so we will finish as close to 1:30 as we possibly can. So this is what we're going to try and get through today. We're going to cover what is carbon literacy, who's it for, why do we need carbon literacy generally as a sort of society, but specifically for the profession. How does it work? What's in the course? We're going to have a little go at some of this. It's a very interactive course, so we're going to have a little go at some of the activities, and then I'm desperately going to try and make sure that we've got time for your questions at the end as well. So the carbon literacy course for veterinary professionals is delivered by myself in partnership with Vet Sustain. So hopefully all of you will have come across Vet Sustain by now. Vet Sustain is a not-for-profit organisation. It's a social enterprise. Started in 2019. So Laura Hyam was the sort of inspiration and the brains behind the operation. So now been going, this is, I guess, coming up into our 5th year. So I've been sort of associated with Vet Sustain almost since the beginning. I was trying to remember when. So I've been on there. They've got lots of different working groups. I've been on their Greener Veterinary Practice working group for quite some time. We've got a new modular Greener Veterinary Practice course, which is coming up, which I've been working on with a couple of other people. So that's coming out a little bit later on this spring. And I've just been appointed a director, which is very exciting. But we've been collaborated together to create this carbon literacy course for the veterinary profession. And it came out in March last year. But Vet Sustain have been doing amazing stuff, really kind of raising the profile of sustainability, really pushing the agenda. And it's been so interesting to see how actually it's meant Vet Sustain and a variety of different things have meant that I feel like we in the UK are much further on as a profession in terms of the sustainability conversation than it is happening in lots of other countries. And Vet Sustain have lots of interest from other countries about like how they can replicate that model to try and push the sustainability sort of agenda that's so desperately needed. So very brief intro to me. As Camilla said, I used to be a small animal vet. So I graduated from the RVC in 2004. I worked in small animal practice for 10 or 11 years. I then sort of very unintentionally transitioned into a career in sustainability. So I have an online platform called Sustainable-ish, which is all about imperfect eco action for ordinary tired people, I tend to say. So you're sort of eco warriors, people who are sort of concerned but have, you know, juggling a lot of other balls like we all are. So I am an accredited carbon literacy trainer. I run the veterinary professionals course. I also have a course for ordinary people that I run, and I have published a couple of books around sustainability for sort of ordinary people, for the mainstream. I have a podcast. I do an awful lot of speaking as well. So that's a very brief introduction to me. So we've already kind of done this, haven't we, in the chat a little bit. If you haven't already, do pop in the chat who you are, where you are, what your role is, and an additional bit of information if you are an IIE member. That would be amazing. So what is carbon literacy? I'm very aware that I sort of use it and I just say it off the cuff, and I realise that not, you know, a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? What is that? And it sounds potentially quite a dull phrase that doesn't really mean anything to anybody. So this is the official definition of carbon literacy from the Carbon Literacy Project. Carbon literacy means being aware of the impact of everyday activities on the climate and knowing what steps can be taken to reduce emissions as an individual, a community group or an organisation, and why it's important that we all take these steps. The actions of individuals can and does make a difference. Learners who have completed a day's worth of approved carbon literacy training can be certified as carbon literate. So that's the official definition. The Carbon Literacy Project are a charity that started around about 11 years ago now. and they don't deliver any carbon literacy training themselves. They don't really sort of design any courses, but what they do is they accredit all the different carbon literacy courses, and they accredit all the learners, and we'll talk a little bit about that accreditation in just a little minute. A definition that I sort of prefer almost for carbon literacy is one that I heard one of the co-founders of the Carbon Literacy Project use. And he talked about this idea of carbon literacy in the same way that we all very quickly, as we're growing up, hopefully develop a financial literacy. So we have an understanding of what's a low value note and what's a high value note in terms of currency. And we have an understanding of whether something is cheap or expensive. And in the same way, the idea with carbon literacy training is that you will come out at the end with an understanding of what's, a high impact action in terms of the things that we're doing every day, in terms of where our emissions coming from, in terms of what's contributing to our carbon footprints, all those kinds of things. And we will also have an understanding of what's a high impact action in terms of the things that we can do to reduce that impact. So that just really basic understanding of where our emissions are coming from and what we can do about them. And I think that's kind of essential for all of us to have, really. So anybody who does a carbon literacy course can get a carbon literacy certificate. So this is Ellie's. Ellie's the operations manager, I think is her official title for Vet Sustain. So Ellie did the sort of pilot course with us. So in order to get your certificate, you need to have attended a day's worth of accredited carbon literacy training. And at the end of that, you have to submit an evidence form. And as part of that, you have to design, and I've put and completed in brackets because nobody comes and checks that you do these pledges, but you have to create 2 carbon reduction pledges. So one's an individual pledge, something that you can do to reduce emissions sort of on your own without help from anybody else, and one's a group pledge. And I think it's one of the things that perhaps sets carbon literacy training apart is that you have to take these actions at the end of it. Because I think if you're anything like me, I'm really good at signing up for courses, at going on webinars, at listening to podcasts, and having all these great intentions, but actually having to write down some pledges and some actions at the end, I think makes it much more likely that we're going to go and we're going to put what we've learned into action and we're going to make these things happen. So I think that's really valuable. I also think it's really valuable that you actually get a certificate, and I think it like the course potentially I don't think would have quite the same impact if you didn't get a certificate at the end of it. We could do all exactly the same things, but the fact that you get this certificate, and I know it's only a piece of paper, I have seen it give people so much confidence in terms of going on to talk about the course, to talk about what they've learned, to go to senior leadership with it. We've had people who've, gone and put it on their CV when they've been applying for jobs. It's a great thing to talk about at interview, all those kinds of things. So the fact that you get a certificate, I think, really does add value to the course as well. So this is the latest infographic from the Carbon Literacy Project website. They update this every month with the number of people that are certified. So you can see from this, nearly 80,000 people have done their carbon literacy training and have gained their certificate at the end of it. And what's really interesting about this is when I first started delivering carbon literacy training, so I did my sort of regular people's course. I started that in February, March, sort of 22. And this slide said something like it was either 20 or 25,000 people certified. So it took them like 9 years to get up to 25,000 people certified. And now they've absolutely, the trajectory is enormous, and they're certifying, thousands of people every single month, which is really, really exciting. 630 different carbon literacy courses available. So I said, when I was sort of filling for time, waiting for my screen to start up before that there are loads, I think over 600 different carbon literacy courses. And the reason for that is that the Carbon Literacy Project want each course to be as specific and as sort of relevant as possible to each specific sector or organisation or indeed business. So that's why there are so many different courses. So there's courses for healthcare, there's courses for legal, there's courses for HR, there's courses for marketing, there's courses, there's so many different courses, and there are indeed organisations that have their own bespoke courses. So just before Christmas, I worked with Bloomsbury, the publishing company, to help them develop a bespoke course for their organisation. So that's why there are so many different courses. And it really helps to have it specific when you're thinking about where your impact is coming from, what the impacts of climate change are going to be on your organisation or on your sector, and then certainly when we start to think about actions and pledges and things that can be done as well, that's where that specificity really helps. So at the moment, I think the bulk of carbon literacy training is delivered within the UK, and that's where it's sort of more widely known, but it is really starting to spread around the world as well, with sort of more and more countries coming on board. And in terms of who it's for, it's basically for anyone and everyone. So they talk on the carbon literacy website about it being for, you know, wherever you live, work or study, trying to make it as relevant as possible to that. You absolutely don't need any previous knowledge or expertise. And I think that's really important to try and get that across, because very often I find in the sustainability space, people don't join courses, people don't join, like I've got a membership community, they don't join because they don't feel they're green enough already. And I'm like, no, that's the point. The point is to learn this stuff, to come, and it's okay to be a beginner, and it's okay not to know. And I work really hard on my courses to make sure that the person who's coming along, dipping their toe in, just trying to find out, feels as comfortable and secure as, you know, sometimes in my sort of non-veterinary course, we have, you know, sustainability professionals come, and it can all be very daunting and that sort of thing. But we're working really hard to make this feel accessible, applicable to everybody. The only criteria, I guess, is that you just need to care. So I've taken some screen grabs there of all the different courses that are currently available via the Carbon Literacy Project website. So outdoor communities, sport, regular communities, marketers, education, SMEs, so small, medium enterprises, fashion and retail, the automotive sector, that's a really interesting one, for the built environment, so construction. So loads and loads of different courses out there, really trying to make this as relevant as we can to so many different people. And in terms of this particular course, the Vet Sustain course, the course for veterinary professionals, we've had 87 people, I think, certified now. We've had more people than that through the course. We're just waiting on a batch of certificates at the moment. Everybody has to do those 2 pledges, so that's double the number of people who've done it. We've had actions pledged. And I have try and keep a rough running tally of the sort of rough, you know, back of the envelope amounts of carbon saved by those actions. And we're at about, what's that, nearly 78,000 kilos of carbon dioxide equivalent. Now, I'm very aware that that means nothing to the vast majority of people. So whenever I sort of put these statistics out, and this is something, you know, for you guys to think about and be bearing in mind, always trying to give kind of equivalences of what that is. And I can't see, because I'm not in presenter mode, I can't see my notes to remind me of what the equivalence of that is. But trying to, when we're talking about carbon emissions, that sort of thing, talking about equivalences in terms of trees planted is often quite a common one, miles driven, flights taken, all those sorts of things, makes it much more relevant to people. Off the top of my head, I'm desperately trying to remember, a return flight from somewhere like London to Hong Kong is something like 3.5 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So we're at 77 tons. So if anybody can do some good maths, but it's quite a few return flights, isn't it, from London to Hong Kong. So you can see that we really are sort of making an impact here in terms of actionable stuff that people are going away and doing to reduce their impact. I was absolutely gobsmacked at the first course that we delivered. We had 3 or 4 people from North America, from Canada and the US. We've had people from Australia, New Zealand, and from Europe as well. So it is something that does seem to have, you know, an international interest as well, which has been really exciting to see. And as I said, we've had people from all roles within practice and from all the different kind of constituent parts that make up the veterinary profession in the widest possible context, which again has just been really, really exciting to see. So thinking about, you know, that's what is carbon literacy, but why do we need it? So, you know, thinking about why do we need carbon literacy? Why do we need this basic understanding of where our emissions are coming from, how that's contributing to a changing climate, and really importantly, what we can do about it? Why do we need that as a society? So I sort of, you know, brainstormed some ideas. But I would love you guys, you know, while I'm thinking about this, to be thinking about, you know, why you think carbon literacy is important for us as a society, why you think carbon literacy is important for us as a profession, as a veterinary profession, and why carbon literacy, or I guess much more broadly, climate action is important to you personally, why you think it's important that we and that you yourself are taking action to try and sort of reduce emissions and to mitigate some of the changes that we're seeing. So whilst I'm talking, be thinking about those, and please do be sharing some in the chat, and I will stop presenting in a little minute because I have my second screen has completely failed, as I probably knew it would, to fire up. So we're in a climate and an ecological crisis. We know that the science is really, really clear. We've got a climate crisis. We've got huge issues with biodiversity loss as well. So the science on that is really, really clear. Knowledge is power and knowledge is confidence. So I talked about, the carbon literacy being this understanding of where our emissions are coming from. And I think one of the issues with, sustainability, with climate action, is that there's a lot of information out there, and some of it's, rubbish, and some of it's really good, and it's really hard to know what's what. And so it's really hard sometimes to know what to do for the best. So having that knowledge, having that understanding, give us the power to make better decisions more of the time. It also gives us the confidence in those decisions, and really importantly gives us the confidence to talk about what we're doing, because that's one of the running themes through the course, is that one of the most important things we can do to fight the climate crisis is to talk about it, and nobody's talking about it. So talking about it, sharing the things that we're doing, sharing the news that we see, sharing our concerns, our worries, all those sorts of things, that's super important. And I think having had a whistle-stop tour around the science around, and having that understanding of it, gives us the confidence to talk more about it, whether that's to friends and family, whether that's to colleagues, whether that's to our senior leadership team. Really importantly, individual actions can and do make a difference. There's often this debate in sort of climate circles around, individual change versus systemic change. They're two sides of the same coin. An individual, empowering people to take individual actions does nudge the system, does help them to develop the confidence to go on and do more of those sort of system changing things, whether that's engaging with their MP or, signing petitions if they're on the sort of activism spectrum, all those sorts of things. But individual actions absolutely can and do make a difference. And really importantly, I always say, the climate crisis, when we start looking at the science, when we start looking at one of the elements of the course is climate justice, it's really overwhelming, and it's potentially very easy to go, oh, this is really hard. Nothing's ever going to change. We're all screwed. But the only thing I can guarantee you is that nothing will change if nothing changes. If we sit here and do nothing and think it's too hard and hide under the duvet, nothing's going to change. We might as well have a go, and we might as well do what we can and really step into the spheres of influence that we have to create as much change as we possibly can. And we really do need everybody on board. And I think carbon literacy training is a brilliant way of doing that. And there's some organisations using it in really interesting ways to kind of reach out of the echo chamber a little bit. I'm very aware when I deliver probably both of the carbon literacy courses that I deliver, that I'm preaching to the choir. I'm getting people who are already engaged, who are already on board, who are happy to give up 8 hours. It's because it's 8 hours worth of training, who are happy to do that, to give up that time. So you might have seen when I was we had that slide on with all the different courses available, and I said the automotive industry. So that's a course that's been developed by Auto Trader, who are like a website, and I think they were a magazine, but they're really like a big player in the car industry. And they developed their own carbon literacy training for them in-house, but also for the whole industry, has created a toolkit for the whole industry. And they make it a compulsory part of their onboarding process for new members of staff, is that everybody starting at that organisation has to do their carbon literacy training. I mean, what a signal to be sending out that this is something that we as an organisation are passionate about, is really important to us. So it's sending that really strong signal to anybody who starts to work in the organisation. But it also helps them to really understand why they're maybe being asked to do things a little bit differently, why they're being asked to look at this or report on this or all those sorts of things. So really interesting, and carbon literacy I think can be used in that way to sort of move this out of the echo chamber and to bring everybody on board. And this really is crunch time. So the science really is telling us that we have until the end of this decade, and this decade is going scarily quickly, you know, till 2030 really, to absolutely slash our emissions if we're to stand any chance of sort of keeping temperature change where it needs to be. And we talk about that a lot in the course in terms of where we are now in terms of degrees of warming, what that means, and you know what the goal is in terms of the temperatures that we need to keep below. I thought this was really interesting. I just added this slide in the last couple of days. This is some research from the World Economic Forum looking at perception of a group of experts of the top 10 risks for the next 2 years and for the next 10 years. And you can see that for the next 2 years, we've got extreme weather events as second, and we've also got pollution as 10th in terms of environmental one. But in terms of over the next 10 years, we're looking at extreme weather, critical change to Earth systems, biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse. I mean, that sounds terrifying, doesn't it? Natural resource shortages, all in the top 5, and we've got pollution coming in into the top 10 as well. So this is another really important reason why we need carbon literacy, why we all need to understand what's happening to the planet, what's happening to our Earth systems, the impacts that will have, to use that as motivation, essentially, to sort of be taking more ambitious action. Couple of quick quotes. So that we're the first, this from Obama, we're the first generation really to feel the impact of climate change, but the last generation that can do something about it. And certainly our generation absolutely cannot turn around to younger generations and say, we didn't know. Like, we know, we've got the science is really clear. We also know what we've got to do. And really importantly, we've got all the technology, all the solutions we need for the emissions cuts that we need to achieve by the end of this decade. What we're lacking at the moment is political will, international cooperation, but we massively can have a role to play in that as individuals in terms of shifting and shaping societal norms, which I think is going to become increasingly important. And this idea, from David Attenborough, what happens now and in these next few years will profoundly affect the next few thousand years. So this idea that, and this, you know, I often read this and feel quite overwhelmed, and then I have to make a really conscious sort of decision to try and flip this, to what happens now and in these next few years. If we get this right, we'll have a profoundly positive impact on generations to come over the next few thousand years. So, you know, what an opportunity when I'm feeling overwhelmed and despairing, you know, trying to flip it, what a time to be alive to have this potential impact. So why do we need carbon literacy for the profession? So we're in a really unique position as vets in the sort of, if we think about the One Health agenda, if we think about human health, animal health and the environment, we're at that intersection. We're still very trusted professionals. You know, every time the public is polled, we're still very trusted professionals. If people are coming to their veterinary practices and they're seeing that the vets have got a lovely, amazing wall display about sustainability, or they're having, you know, if you're a farm vet and you're having conversations on farm about sustainability and carbon and all those sorts of things, people will listen, people will trust what we're saying. So it's a really important role as educators, influencers, trusted professionals, and as, you know, everyday citizens as well. We can act personally to reduce our own footprints, our own households' footprints. We can act professionally in our own clinics, in our workplaces, and we can come together as a profession to act collectively as well. And we can influence, you know, we can have a sort of planetary-wide impact, certainly in terms of emissions going up and spreading across the planet. We can have a really positive impact at a community level and at a practice level as well. So we really are in a very strong and a very unique position. As I said, we're amongst the most trusted professionals. And there was a study that BVA, or some research that BVA did in 2019. 89% of vets wish to be more actively involved in the sustainability agenda. But I'm super aware that at the moment there are so many demands upon our time and our resources as veterinary professionals. Everybody is so stretched that I think it's quite easy for sustainability to fall down the agenda. So what we need to try and do, those of us who are keen and excited and passionate about this, is to try and make this accessible and as easy as possible, you know, coming to the practice with ideas for the people to get involved in. Really important, and something that I certainly didn't clock when I graduated, part of the oath for those of us who are veterinary surgeons: I promise and solemnly declare I will pursue the work of my profession with integrity, blah, blah, blah. Constant endeavour to ensure the Oh, no, that wasn't the bit I wanted to say. Here we go. Veterinary surgeons must seek to ensure the protection of public health and animal health and welfare, and must consider the impact of their actions on the environment. I had no idea that that bit was in there. I don't know if they've snuck it in since I graduated, or clearly I just wasn't paying very much attention. But that's, you know, that's part of our code of conduct. We must consider the impact of our actions on the environment, and I think that's super interesting when we start to think about our role and the role that we can play. And there are lots and lots of co-benefits of climate action. So there are some people who aren't that motivated by, you know, climate change. And certainly in places like the States, I know people who say, like, I don't even mention the C word. They don't even mention climate, but they will talk about pollution, or they'll talk about nature and things like that. But if we're trying to get other people on board, especially if that's maybe our senior leadership team or something like that, there are so many co-benefits. So money saving is a really great one. Anything that reduces our energy usage will reduce our emissions and will save us money. We've got big impacts coming from anaesthetic gases, especially in small animal practice. So if we can reduce that, that will reduce our emissions. That will save us money. So lots of these things can go hand in hand, which is great news. We know that climate action can result in increased physical and mental health. So if we think about lower diets associated with lower emissions, they will be healthier diets. If we think about active travel, so walking and cycling, that's better for us physically, that's better for us mentally. Lower levels of air pollution, green economic growth and job creation. Importantly for us as a profession, thinking about animal health and animal welfare, and how improvements in those can often go hand in hand with reduced emissions as well. And certainly from a practice or a workplace perspective, we know that lots of graduates, I'm not sure if there's any data yet around veterinary graduates, but more general graduates are coming out of university and are looking for jobs with organisations that have very clear, very, are doing something more than just their job, that are about more than just bringing home money or making the business more money. They really want to be working for organisations that have people and planet as part of their sort of bottom line as well as profit. So I think that will become increasingly important as well. So I'm just going to stop presenting so I can see the chat for a little minute. What's your why? What do you guys think? Why is climate action important for you guys? Why do you think it's important for you to have this understanding, for you to be taking climate action, for us as a profession as well?
You have got a question there from Lindsay, who can you see the chat now?
Yeah, so I've got Lindsay saying, someone very savvy in leading our accreditation, but it's hard to support when I don't have enough knowledge on the topic. That's really great. That's super interesting, Lindsay. And was there another question that I've missed, Camilla?
No, that was just that Devon had to leave, unfortunately, because she had to go off to another meeting. But I think it's a few things that popped up while people are typing. I was listening to the hairdresser for the homeless. He's not. It's not quite called that, but he was interesting because he was saying that he saw this massive issue, which was homelessness, and he doesn't know how to kind of create accommodation for them and get meals for them all and things. But he was saying he found that he could take there's something he knew about, and he could take action on that front, which was to give them a haircut and make them feel a bit better for, and they like the look of themselves having had a haircut and looking a bit smarter. And I thought it was quite an interesting thing about how you can make just a small kind of taking control to overcome a problem in an area that you do know what you do feel familiar with, and translating that into to address a bigger problem. And
I saw he did a great session at Let's Stay Go Diversify but he did a great keynote speech there, and how you think it's just a haircut, and it's not just a haircut. It's about giving people pride in their appearance again, and it was so much more than that. And I love that bit that you said about well, I can't solve all of this, but I can do this little bit here. And so it's thinking about what are we in control of, understanding where our emissions are coming from, what we might have some control over, and therefore what we can do about that. And I think that's so important, isn't it? So Faye's just typing. Faye, if it's quicker to unmute and share with us, please do, if you feel comfortable to do that. And anybody else, if you want to sort of pop your why in there, that would be. So Ella can't see anyone else's messages. So sometimes, Ella, you have to open the little chat bubble on Teams, but I'm by far, as you will tell, I'm by far a Teams expert, so I'm not massively familiar. Right, I'm gonna I can see that Faye's still typing, but I'm gonna crack on and go back to the presentation just so the last generation who can really make it. I know it's kind of terrifying, but as I said, Faye, trying to turn that into like an empowering, you know, this is something that, as Camilla said, this is something that we can do, that we can take action over. Right, let's head back to these slides. So how does the course work? I probably should have mentioned this earlier. It's 8 hours, which feels like a really big chunk of time to try and find. So at the moment, all our delivery has been online, and we either do it in 2 4-hour sessions. So they tend to have been mornings, so 9 till 1, or we do 4 2-hour sessions. We've done, I think we have done lunchtime sessions 12 till 2. We've also done evening sessions 7 till 9. So we're constantly trying, sort of chasing and trying to find the, you know, the perfect time, the time that works best for people, all those sorts of things. I don't think there is such a thing. So we try and put on a variety of different days, a variety of different time slots, all those sorts of things. But there are, yeah, it needs to be 8 hours worth. It's split into 4 sessions. Session 1 is why carbon literacy, which is lots of the stuff that we've just already done. We do a whistle-stop tour through the climate science. We look at where we are now in terms of, you know, warming and the impact that that's having. We start to have a look at carbon footprints, both personal and practice footprints. Then session 3, we look at you know, what are the different futures that lie ahead, depending on how quickly or otherwise we take action. And we have what I hope is a really sort of empowering session where we sort of look at what life and work could look like in 2030, where we've sort of managed to halve emissions and all this amazing climate action has happened. And then session 4 is really devoted to sort of bombarding you basically with ideas for things that you can do, with case studies of practices that have made changes, all those sorts of things, and for helping you to feel like you're sort of equipped to come up with your pledges. It is, I always say, it's an emotional roller coaster, the course, because some of this is really uncomfortable, some of this is really overwhelming, and I've tried very hard to sort of balance it so that we have a depressing bit followed by a more uplifting bit and all those sorts of things, and really I hope that, you know, people will come through that discomfort or any discomfort they feel at the course, and the main aim is for everybody to feel kind of empowered and, really importantly, enthused about doing this stuff, because as I'm sure some of you will relate, this can feel like hard work. So there's some sort of learning objectives there for the course. So, you know, understanding the basic science of climate change and how it's affecting us globally and locally, understanding how the profession is contributing to it and how the profession, importantly, will be impacted by that. I don't think we've given enough thought to that as a profession. All of the courses have to include a bit on sort of climate justice and thinking about how the impacts of climate change aren't uniformly spread, and you know, why that might be, and what contributes to that, and you know, how we can be aware of that, and then you know, really importantly, creating this action plan, thinking about strategies for influencing others, because it's you know, quite often we get people coming on the course and you know, they're that person at the practice who is the keen bean, who is, and so everybody's sort of loads everything onto them, or trying to get everybody else to come on board with it can be difficult. So we really look at that as well, thinking about what are some fun ways, some exciting ways that we can get people on board with this. And as I said, I really want you guys to feel empowered and enthused at the end to want to do this. And at the end, you have to create this action plan with an individual action and a group action. And when carbon literacy training is being delivered in a workplace setting, they really want the actions to be workplace actions. So we really encourage you to think about your role, where you know, what you're in control of in your role, and what you might be able to do as an individual, as one person, without help from anybody else, to reduce emissions, and then what you could do, who else you could involve, how you could get more people on board with a sort of you know, a wider action within the workplace, or how you could get other practices on board, whatever that might be, to sort of really create this ripple effect in terms of action. So we're going to do a little taster of some of the material. We've already done a little bit of it, looking at thinking about that why, because we really do a piece on that in the training as well. But this is a slide that I use in every carbon literacy training that I do, and I use it in pretty much every single talk that I do as well. So has anybody, can you do me a why or a no, a yes or a no in the chat if you've seen this image before? It's one of my very favourite images. I think it's hugely powerful. So if you can just give me a yes or a no in the chat. It doesn't matter if you have or you haven't. So thank you, Lindsay and Faye. No.
I always think they look on first look, it looks like the sort of seat covering on one of the London Undergrounds, doesn't it?
The National Express or something like that. Yeah. So we've got lots of no's, which is really exciting because I get to tell you all about my favourite image. So these are the warming stripes, sometimes called the climate stripes, created by a guy called Ed Hawkins, who's a professor at Reading University. And what he's done is he's taken the average global temperature since about 1850, and he's given each year a stripe, depending on whether it was a stripe and a colour, and the colour depends on whether it was warmer or cooler than the average 50 years up to 1850. Again, in the chat, why does anybody have a guess? And this is the other important thing about carbon literacy training, is that best guesses are very actively encouraged. No prior knowledge needed, but best guesses encouraged. Why do we think he picked 1850 as his starting point? What was happening? Think back to your school days and your history lessons. What do we think was happening at around that time? Yeah, amazing, Lindsay. Bang on. Industrial Revolution. And Faye, well done. Oh, you guys are all over this. Yeah, so it's it was when the Industrial Revolution was really starting to kick in, when we were really starting to sort of pump some greenhouse gases up into the atmosphere, unknowingly at that time as to the impact that it would have. So there's like, this is I talk about this being my favourite image, like it's quite terrifying when we look at it. But there's a couple of reasons why it's one of my favourite images. I think it's quite striking, apart from now I have connotations of it being underground or, coach upholstery. But I do think it's quite a striking image. People will go, oh, what's that? That looks interesting. It's a brilliant conversation starter, which is why it was designed. It was designed to, for people to share on social media, for people to share in a variety of different formats to kick off a conversation about climate change. But I also feel like you could show this to a 4-year-old, explain what it is, and they'd be like, oh yeah, it's got much, much warmer. It's really easy to see, isn't it? So it's a really super powerful image. And on the course, we talk about, how this has been used in a variety of different ways. So people have it on, you can get little pin badges, you can get it on ties, you can get knitting patterns of scarves for it. I get people to think about, like, are there some ways, or what are some of the ways that you could use this image in practice to spark some conversations with colleagues, with clients? So could you have, it is a big image on a waiting room display, so that people come in and then you've got a display about how to be a more sustainable pet owner, that sort of thing. Could you have it, you can get a mug with it on there. So you could have your coffee mug with the climate stripes on there, all sorts of things. So there's loads of really inventive and creative ways that it's being used. So have a think, it could be that your takeaway from this is like, oh, well, how might I be able to use this? Could it be in a section in your newsletter, whatever that might be? So in terms of warming, we saw from that slide that the world has indeed got much warmer. How much has the world warmed compared to pre-industrial levels? So maybe either you can type the number or type A, B, C or D into the chat. Do you think it's warmed by 0.5 degree? Do you think it's warmed by 1 degree, or 1.2 degrees, or 1.5 degrees? Where do you think we're at the moment in terms of degrees of warming globally? So we've got a C from Ella, which is 1.2, Faye's 1.2, Lindsay 1.2. Yeah, absolutely bang on, guys. So we're at about 1.2 degrees of warming. It's a kind of a debate that's happening at the moment, in that, like, how many years has this average taken? Because last year, 2023, was the warmest year on record, and it was, I think, around about 1.5 degrees warmer over the course of the year. So, and if we take a 10-year average, we're going to hit that sort of 1.5 degrees much sooner than if we sort of look over a 20 or a 30-year average. So I think there's a bit of a debate happening in climate circles at the moment. But as far as I'm aware, the science is still that we're at about 1.2 degrees, but warming much more quickly than anticipated. Camilla's also, I don't think I've got it on here, also pointed out that warming stripes image that we had, if we go back to this, There's also an amazing biodiversity stripes image, and Camilla, I don't know if you can find the link. If you just Google biodiversity stripes, you guys will find it, and it shows the decline in biodiversity that we've seen in I think since 1970, and it's a 69% decline in global biodiversity since 1970, which is absolutely staggering. And that matters because we're entirely dependent on a rich and diverse ecosystem for our food, for our water, for our clean air, all those sorts of things. So, you know, when we do the course, I'm at pains to point out that we're concentrating on greenhouse gases, we're concentrating on climate change, but it's really important to remember that we also have this biodiversity crisis, and that climate change is one of the drivers of biodiversity loss out of, I think, 5. So that's another really striking image to use as well. Right, time is whistling by, so maybe we'll just do this little activity and then we'll come and we'll see if you guys have any questions. So what are the main greenhouse gases? There are lots and lots of different greenhouse gases, but we're in the course we talk about 5 main ones. So let's see if we can name them all in the chat. Again, no judgment, it doesn't matter, we're just having best guesses. What do you think are the main greenhouse gases? Let's see if we can have 5 named in the chat. Lindsay, straight in there, amazing, and everyone else is cursing because you went carbon dioxide. Amazing. Methane, brilliant, well done, Faye. So those are the 2 most common ones that we tick off pretty quickly. Everyone else is now like, damn, what else are we going to go for? So we've got one of them is a group of gases, that might help. One of them is one that I didn't have any clue about that it was a greenhouse gas until I did my carbon literacy training, so that's really mean. And one of them is one that we use, or certainly traditionally have used as part of our anaesthesia protocols in small animal. Yeah, nitrous oxide, well done, Faye. So that's definitely one. So now we're looking for the group of gases and the mystery one, the one that I had no clue about till I did my carbon literacy training. Let's just see if anybody has any. I'll give you another like 30 seconds or so, see if anybody can come up with anything. As I said, it absolutely doesn't matter if you can't. But it's really interesting, and then we might have time to just have a little look at where these different gases come from, because that helps us to start thinking about, well, where might my lifestyle, where might our practice, where might our emissions be coming from? And that can be a really useful exercise. So the one that I had no idea about is water vapor. Water vapor is the most abundant greenhouse gas. And it's the last time that we mention, we mention it once in the course and then we don't mention it again. But just so that, interesting pop quiz fact, pub quiz detail, isn't it? Then we've got carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, which are the ones that we got, and then F gases, which is this group of synthetic or man-made gases. And they've all got different potentials, different capacities to hold heat in the atmosphere. And so when we're looking at a carbon footprint of a person, of a car, of a veterinary practice, there will be lots of, all of these gases will contribute to it. So it can be hard to compare if we were trying to look at all these different numbers. So scientists came up with this global warming potential. So they looked at the capacity of a gas to hold heat over a 100-year period. And carbon dioxide was assigned a value of 1, methane about 25 times more potent than that over a 100-year period, nitrous 300 times nearly more potent over a 100-year period, and these F gases, these synthetic gases, anywhere between tens and tens of thousands of times more potent. So what this means is that scientists can look at a person, a car, a veterinary practice, do the maths with all these, look at how much carbon dioxide is being produced, how much methane, how much nitrous, do the maths with these global warming potentials and give us one number, and you will sometimes see, and if you remember me saying how much carbon, how much emissions we'd saved with the course, expressed as CO2 and then a little e, and that's CO2 carbon dioxide equivalent. So that's saying that it's taken into account all of these other greenhouse gases as well. Camilla's just spoiler alerted my my little quiz I was going to do. Don't worry. So I was going to, often people are like, and I have to, really try and zip my lips.
Sorry, Jen.
Like, where do F gases come from? Don't worry, Camilla, at all. Let's just do 2 or 3 of these. What do we think? So Camilla said aircon. So yeah, that's an F gas. The other place that F gases are commonly used is refrigeration. So really important thing. Food waste. What do we think? Have a go in the chat. What do we think is the predominant greenhouse gas that is produced as a result of food waste? Have a guess. Best guess in the chat, and we'll see. Well done, Sarah and Faye. Absolutely bang on. Methane, yep. Similarly, landfill, a huge contributor to methane emissions. So food waste, if food waste was a country, be the third biggest emitter of greenhouse gases after the USA and China. So it's a really big issue when it comes to food. Interesting one when we're thinking about especially small animal practice, anesthetic gases. So things like isoflurane. What do we think they are? As a green, what do we think is the where do we think they're coming into this set of greenhouse gases? So things like isoflurane, sevoflurane. Yeah, well done, Faye. So they're F gases. I don't know how well understood that is in sort of more widely in practice now. I'm in my little echo chamber and everybody's fully on it. But certainly when I was in practice, never even occurred to me that they would be greenhouse gases, and that, you know, when somebody accidentally dropped a bottle of ISO, you know, there was concerns other than A, getting everybody out and disposing of it safely, B, the boss kicking off because you've just dropped a bottle of ISO, but that there was this huge impact in terms of greenhouse gases as well. So that's really interesting to think about. And if any of you are in small animal practice and you've done your carbon footprint, you may well be surprised at the extent to which anesthetic gases, and if you're still using nitrous as part of your anesthetic protocols, are making that up. So that can, you know, that's one of the advantages, or one of the really useful things about doing your carbon footprint, is it can reveal these kind of, you know, exactly where your emissions are coming from, and sometimes that can be really surprising. So we'll just whip through these last few bits. Why does it matter if the world warms? Like, why are we making such a big deal about like 1.2 degrees of warming? I think this is one of the comms problems we've maybe had with sort of climate change and things, is that we're talking about 1.2 degrees. We're talking about 1.5 degrees is one of the numbers that's bandied around a lot as being a temperature that we want to try and keep the temperature below. And it feels like, you know, I couldn't tell you if my cup of tea was like 89 or 90 degrees. It's a bit colder than that now, but, you know, I couldn't tell you that. I couldn't tell you if my bath was a degree off. And so I understand why people are like, what are you on about? Why does it matter? If we think about it in terms of the human body, or if as a, you know, as a professional thing, as our sort of patients, if we've got a patient and it's got a temperature of 1.2 degrees above normal, we can see that it's feeling pretty ropey. We know ourselves, if we've had COVID, if we've had flu recently, like you feel pretty ropey, even with the temperature that 1.2 degrees above normal. If we've got a sustained, you know, a patient with a sustained temperature that's not coming down, that starts to impact on their body systems. We start to see all these really clever feedback loops start to break down, and that's exactly what's happening with the planet. So as Lindsay said, we're seeing melting of the poles, we're seeing rising sea levels, we're seeing more extreme weather events. So these are just some of the sort of headlines from around the world over the last couple of years, and all of these things lead on to impacts that we will feel in terms of food shortages, in terms of water shortages, in terms of healthcare, you know, becoming more expensive, becoming more difficult to provide, in terms of spreading diseases, in terms of cost of living going up, you know, and if cost of living's going up, does that mean that our clients can't afford veterinary care, all those sorts of things. So really thinking about how these impacts that we're seeing in terms of the earth systems and the changes that we're seeing in the extreme weather, how that's going to impact on us as a profession. So I think I'm probably going to have to leave it there in terms of, I've done my usual thing of wittering on for too long. Do you guys have any, I've just sort of flicked through some of the other stuff that we do incredibly quickly. Do you guys have any questions? These are just some examples of some of the pledges that people have come up with in terms of individual pledges at the end of the course. But whilst you're just having a look at them, do you guys have any questions about the course and about carbon literacy more generally? Or anything I might be able to help with? Feel free to pop them in the chat or to unmute and ask as well.
So Lindsay, yes, we will share the recording after this event, and I'm sure Jen are you happy to share some of your slides, if not all of them?
Send those over, yeah, no problem. I'll just click on so
Thank
that
you.
Look at some of them.
No problem.
And in terms of group pledges, here's some ideas for group pledges as well. Yeah, anybody got any questions or any thoughts or anything they want to share? We've got 3 minutes, I think, left.
Well, I mean, we can roll on a little bit, but I realised people would have blocked the time out. I wanted to make it, while people are maybe thinking their questions about that importance of peer learning or peer behavior. I think it is, there's sort of something, isn't there, about you know, people are more likely to get solar panels on the roof of their house if their neighbours do, and certainly I know you know, litter picking isn't going to save the world, but I do go out litter picking locally, and sometimes I put it on our local social media post, and it you know, pages, and it's amazing how many people comment on it, say, oh gosh, as a result I went out and did it too. And I think we like to feel informed before we go and do that. Like, litter is really easy because nobody wants it there, and you pick it up and it will go. You feel a bit less confident about always bossing people about turning the lights off or whatever. But having this knowledge that you gain through the carbon literacy training helps you kind of strengthen your resolve to and feel more informed about trying to encourage others to change their behaviour, like you're saying, influencing.
Yeah, that social norm piece is really important. There's a growing body of, you know, there's various climate tipping points that scientists are concerned about in terms of Earth systems, but in terms there's a social tipping point, a growing body of evidence around that, in terms of it needs about 25% of people in a community, in a workplace, doing something differently, talking about climate change, whatever it is, in order for that to become the sort of social norm within that veterinary practice, within that community. So really thinking about, like, what are the things that you can do within your practice to be seen to be doing this stuff, to having these conversations, and really importantly, I think, to try and make it fun for people to get involved with as well. There's a lovely quote that might be a nice one to end on, by Louisa, and I can't remember her last name, but she's from Toastdale, and she says something like, you know, we basically need to throw a better party than the people destroying the planet to get people to come on board. And you know, and I think there's often this like idea that you're going to be bashed over the head and it's going to be really dull and really boring and all those sorts of things, but actually we can, there are some really fun and loads of co-benefits and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's really important to think about. So Faye, currently a locum, do you think you can make an impact here outside of being part of an individual practice? Came today, see if it'd be useful for me. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had locums on the course. I think there is always a frustration, I guess, when you're a locum, in that you go in, you don't have much say over the, you know, the protocols, the procedures, all those sorts of things, and there might be things that they're doing, you're like, oh, and you don't want to be like that person, do you? Constantly kind of nagging or having a go, or you're like, oh god, it's that locum again, do you know, that sort of thing. But you definitely, in terms of the conversations that you can have, in terms of you know, sharing best practice that you've seen happening at other practices, all those sorts of things. You know, oh gosh, I saw this clinic had done, they you know, they instigated low flow anesthesia and I had no idea, but it saved them. And you could talk about financial savings, because that's something that everybody gets and everybody understands, and you know, because it was part of their IIE accreditation or something like that. So you could certainly kind of sow little seeds, do you know what I mean? Like drop little nuggets in wherever you are, and all those sorts of things. So anything you can do that you can share that will save people money, that will make things easier for people. I think most people want to do the right thing, but it can feel really hard. So as a locum, you're great. You're in a great position to cherry pick almost what other people are doing in other practices and to be able to share that.
Yeah, I'd say
that's a great question, Faye.
Perfect agent for change. You can go in and because I think there is another kind of stat which says that, you know, 80% of people want to do something about climate change, but they don't know where to start. So you can be really and talking about cost savings or marketing benefit always gets the attention of the senior management. So
yes, yeah,
as well as obviously environmental benefit. But I know that one of our clients said that for every interaction they had on social media, which was about how they've improved their environmental performance, they reckon they got sort of £2,000 worth of business or something extraordinary.
Wow.
So that's
phenomenal.
yeah.
So Lindsay's got a question about whether it can be done via recordings. Unfortunately, Lindsay, because there's so many interactive elements to it, the carbon literacy like it's a criteria of that the bulk of the training is people do come to live, so we really try and discourage people from sort of signing up to it and then having access to recordings. If you've signed up to it and you were partway through and then we've had people like have suddenly had a funeral or a family illness and those sorts of things, then of course we'll record a session so people don't miss out when they've already started. But we really try not to do it via recordings, because part of it is coming together and forming your own little community in the group and realizing that there are other people there. And also, if you're anything like me, I'm awful. I'll sign up to stuff and then I just won't do it unless I have to turn up live. So I think that's another great reason for sort of making it live. So there's the Tuesday evenings in March, and just keep an eye on the website. We will be adding, we're trying to get organised and sort of add dates, as far in advance as we can. So we will be adding more dates coming through. But yeah, unfortunately, Lindsay, I know it's a pain for people, the sort of live element of it, but I think it does make it much more impactful.
So the March dates are the equivalent of the January dates. Right. It's just I literally have a 2-hour slot on the 24th and it's not at that time. So I can't do it.
Yeah, so the March dates are January is one course and then March is another course.
Okay, thank you.
March course is the Tuesday evenings. Yeah. Sorry, that probably wasn't very clear. Anyone else, any questions? I think people will be desperate to go off and grab some lunch or have a wee or have a cup of tea or anything like that. But if you have got any questions, feel free to drop me an email. There's my email there, Jen@Sustainable-ish, or you can get through to Ellie at Vet Sustain. She's absolutely swamped, but she will get to you. And there's the websites there. So if you go onto the Vet Sustain website and then up in the right hand corner there's a little button that says learn, and if you go on there that gives you all the course dates and things, and you can see there what the course dates and things are, and that's how you can book through. But if you've got any questions, I'm really happy to for people to email me, or you can come and track me down on social media. I'm on most platforms as either Jen, Gale or Sustainable-ish, so do come and ask questions.
I've been on Jen's course and it's absolutely brilliant. I can really recommend it. So if you have a chance and can spare the time, then please sign up, because I think you'll find it really valuable and feel empowered as a result. So I'll say thank you very much, Jen. Thank you all
thank you so
for
much
all
for having
your
me,
contributions.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Well, it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but
yes.
Everybody can look through your slides at leisure afterwards.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
nice
everyone.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.